In this video, we're going to try to understand what this formula means. Now, we're not going to be able to do it fully just yet. I'm going to save part of this for when we go into geometry in later videos, because it requires going on a little bit of a long tangent, which is not so appropriate at this point. So keep in mind that whatever I'll present now might seem a little bit like, how do you know that? Where does that come from? And that will be explained in the future. So any equation of this sort, if you replace the 0 with a y, so let's say y equals this whole thing, or any numbers, y equals 4x squared, y equals 7x squared minus 3, y equals negative 2x squared plus 5x minus 8, any of these at all are going to look like these shapes, which are called parabolas. So this is the y-axis, this is the x-axis. Now they're going to all look like U-shapes, either right side up or upside down, and they can be anywhere in the two-dimensional plane here. So this can be here, 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 anywhere like this, or it can be facing down. All right, so, and we'll go over, like I said later, how do we know that? But if you want to convince yourself, take an easy case such as this, y equals x squared, plug in some numbers and plot them, and you should be able to get this shape right here. All right, so why am I bringing this up? If we take a look at this general quadratic equation, where this is equal to 0, instead of just a y, so let me erase some of these. So if we set this equal to y, that's going to be some sort of general parabola. If we set this equal to 0, that's asking the question of where is the height of this thing equal to 0. Now, if you notice, 0 is right here. Y equals 0 is over here, so this thing doesn't even touch the x-axis. So this relates to what we should expect out of this formula. So let's take this example where it hits it in 2 spots. By the way, later on we'll go over, these are not perfectly approaching vertical, these continue to go out. All right, if it hits it in 2 spots, what this means is that these 2 points are going to be your solutions for x. So let's say this is 1 and this is 4, then your solutions are x equals 1 or x equals 4. That's where this equation is equal to 0. That's the height of 0. Now, so that means you're going to get a plus or minus some number. There's 3 conceptual possibilities. Either you get 2 solutions, you get exactly 1, let's say it's touching it right at 1 point, or maybe it's touching it at no points. This never even hits the axis. If this is hitting it at exactly 1 point, that means that this square root term must be 0. Why is it 0? Because otherwise you would have 2 cases, plus a number, minus a number. So the only way you're not getting 2 different numbers is if it's plus or minus 0, which means it's the same number. So that, again, this case means that this works out to be 0. If you're in this case, you're going to get something like negative b plus or minus, and once you evaluate this part, you'll get, let's say, negative 7. If this thing inside is negative, which means it's an imaginary number, that just means it's that's just what we call the square root of a negative number. That means there is no intersection. So if you get something really ridiculous, that means there are no solutions. So technically, it's not that there are no solutions, there are no real solutions in the sense of real numbers. You get imaginary solutions, so, and the graphical interpretation is if you get this imaginary case, that it's not hitting your x-axis. So that's sort of understanding what this formula means and in terms of what you're getting. So if you let's relate it to a simple case. So if you have something like y equals x squared plus 10x plus 25, and you want to know where does this hit the x-axis, we're going to set this to 0. And we can also factor this nicely, so we're not going to use the quadratic equation. And you could tell that instead of having 2 different solutions, if we write these out, we actually have the same solution duplicated. So that would be called a double root. So x equals -5. And this is precisely the case when it's touching it at one spot, right? Perfectly at that middle point. All right, I'll leave it at that. That's just so you have some intuition as to what this thing means, the quadratic formula. In the previous video, again, we discussed how to use it. And in the next video, we'll discuss how do you get this.